Hello and welcome to Transform the Money, Transform the World. We are the show that talks about how technology is changing money, but more importantly, how technology is changing commerce, the way to communicate, the way to store and transfer data, all that great stuff. This is not a show for investment recommendations. This is about education. And I'm happy today to have a good friend of mine on named Brian DeMint. And when I say good friend, I've known you now a whole maybe 6 months. But I'm eventually on one of these shows, I'm going to tell the viewers how we come about knowing each other and what I was looking for in your book. But Brian is the author of the Bitcoin Evangelism. He is a Bitcoin evangelist, but he wrote the book Bitcoin Evangelism and also a book called Parallel. And we'll eventually cover those books. But where I want to start today is how you discovered Bitcoin, what caused you to do a deep dive and study into it and become what I'm going to reference an expert in the area of understanding this ledger technology, and also, and how everything led up. And when you do, I'll interrupt you if I feel like I want you to dive deeper into something. But go ahead, Brian. The floor
Yeah,
is
well, thanks,
yours.
Chad. And you know what? I mean, I would say we are good friends. Yeah, we haven't known each other for probably an entire year yet. But I've texted and called, got on more phone calls with you than I have with half of my family. So whatever the audience wants to make of that. But yeah, my history, and I think that this is true for most things that we learn in life. There's things that are kind of sprinkled early in our life or earlier on before it fully kind of germinates, before the thing fully grows. That's actually the subtitle. There's an homage to that idea in the subtitle of Bitcoin evangelism. The subtitle is planting seeds for the decentralized revolution. I really believe that the reason we come to the conclusions we do as young men, young adults, older men, older adults, is because of things that were sprinkled into us as young people. For me, I grew up in a family of gold bugs. I remember talking about scarcity and sound money around our dinner table when I was 9, 10 years old. I grew up on a street called Sovereign Way. And if anybody knows anything about Bitcoin, it's known as sovereign money. So I remember at a young age asking my parents what sovereign meant, and this idea of self ownership and self sovereignty to be in charge of yourself was a really profound idea. And I remember learning that from a young age. I know adults today that don't know what sovereignty means. And I think it's a really important idea for Americans, for just freedom loving people around the world to understand. And then my last name is DeMint. I remember in eighth grade, my eighth grade history teacher telling me, "Oh, do you know what your last name means?" We were going around the class and doing different last names, and he said, "Yeah, we kind of looked up the history of DeMint, and it means coin minter. It means that, so somewhere in my family's lineage, we were these evil bankers at some point. We were probably part of the bad guys, but so just these ideas being instilled in me when we talked about gold and scarcity, we talked about sovereignty, we talked about money from a very relatively young age. Now, when I became a high school kid and a young adult, these things were lost on me. You end up chasing vanity and just trying to chase the things that the world has for you, and not in a really terrible like party animal or anything like that, but you just kind of lose focus of these very principled things, and you want to live a little, right? These disciplines in life tend to go by the wayside, whether it's discipline in your individual life or discipline in your money, certainly. And so I wasn't a very disciplined person when it came to financial things. Now, when I was in my later 20s, that's when I first heard about Bitcoin. I'm 38 years old right now. I think I was 27 or 28 when I first heard about Bitcoin. And it about
About
10
10
years
years ago.
ago.
That takes
Yeah,
us back
2013,
2014. It's
2014.
about time Fidelity was
Yes.
getting into business, I think, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And I came to asking questions about Bitcoin because I first asked questions. One day I just was curious, why do we have the money that we do? And so I just started doing a deep dive. I don't know if you've ever been driving in the car and you just get struck with a question and a curiosity emerges and you have to learn more about this thing. And so it was through a study of our monetary system that led me to Bitcoin. And so I was curious as to what were other alternatives to our existing monetary system. That's what led me to studying Bitcoin. And what I noticed about our monetary system is that it's virtually no different than any monetary system that's ever, and when I refer to our monetary system, I'm talking about the US dollar. It's no different than any monetary system of the past. They always have this time, like it's almost like a person. There's different phases. They go through an adolescence, they go through an adulthood, and currencies of the past have always been gold backed or silver backed, but then they
You go back all the way to Genghis Kong, and sorry to
exactly.
interrupt you, and shark's teeth, and all the different mechanisms
Exactly.
of
You're
trade. We've
100%
studied
right.
that.
It's no different. And then they always get to a point of fiat where it's the government completely in control of it, and they remove the commodity side of it, and then it becomes a system of complete trust. You have to trust in the entity that's issuing it. And so that's where we're at in the lifespan of the US dollar. And what was the startling realization which led me to Bitcoin was that 100% of currencies always fail. There's no history of a currency lasting until today. We have commodities, we have monies like gold and silver that still last today. That's different than currency, though. That's different than national currencies. And so, uh, Bitcoin represented essentially a solution to that major problem of scarcity. The reason why those currencies always fail is because there was no way to ensure a scarcity or a scarce or a finite amount to their quantity. Bitcoin, that's the greatest selling point of Bitcoin, is that there's only ever going to be 21 million, and that is a definitive mathematical point.
Gotcha. So, oldest standing currency. So the British pound, and we may not be able to have enough time to get into this, but it's 350 years old. All right. Is that the same British pound that's was existed 350 years ago? Or there's been some changes. We can. I'll have my summer intern dive into that for the next show. But Brian, thank you, and we will see you on the next show, and we'll pick up where we left off. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chad.